up guys? Welcome back to another episode of Shower Shorts, and today I'm going to be talking about my experience with the multiple mini interview. So you may have heard of MMIs, or you may have had an MMI, but they are about 1.5 to 2 years old, and they're from our good friends up in Canada, thanks Canada, who created this type of interview in order to change up things about how interviews go. It's becoming very popular with med schools and PA schools, and it actually is a way that helps a school evaluate you, even though it doesn't seem like it, but it actually is in your favor. So in a traditional interview, it's a one-on-one interview, one student and one interviewer. And generally you'll have like 2 of these in an interview period. So you'll have one interviewer and then you'll have a second interviewer. So that means if you screw up any of your interviews, then that's like half of your interview already gone out the window. In an MMI, you have 6 to 10 stations in which you can perform at your best. That means you have 6 to 10 opportunities to be the best candidate that you can be. If you mess up on one of those, you still have 8 or 9 other chances. In fact, for the school that I interviewed for, they told us that one year there was a student who completely missed one section of their interview, and they had to go back and ask to redo that part. And what ended up happening was they went back and they did it again, and then they actually got an acceptance to that school. So it is completely possible to mess up on one part of your MMI and still rock the other 9 and be fantastic and be the candidate that you choose. So general structure for an MMI, you'll be given 1 to 2 minutes to read a scenario and come up with a plan of action in response to that scenario. Then you enter the room and you have about 5 to 6 minutes to discuss your plan of action with the interviewer. The scenarios can vary. It can be a basic traditional question, it can be a behavioral question, or you can be given an ethics question. One scenario that's special about MMIs is that you might be given a role-play scenario. That means after you read the card, you enter the room and you interact with either the interviewer or an actor, and you solve the dilemma that way. It sounds pretty daunting, but the point of an MMI is to communicate your thought process. One of the best things you can do during an MMI is to communicate your thought process, talk your thoughts out loud as you come to a decision. Let the interviewer know what you're thinking about. I like to call it stream of consciousness because as you're thinking of ideas and ways to solve the problem, you're saying them out loud so that the interviewer knows how you are reaching that decision. A lot of times I feel students are uncomfortable when it comes to MMIs because they feel like they don't know enough about health, or they don't know enough about laws, or they don't know about the ethics regarding that. And the point is, the interview committee does know that you don't know everything, and they don't expect you to know everything. But what they're there for is how you reach your conclusions based on your thought process. So like I mentioned, the role-play scenario is special for MMIs, and one of the most important things to remember for MMIs in role-play scenarios is that you need to listen. More often than not, role-play scenarios in MMIs will have follow-up questions. This means that you shouldn't just talk on and on and on for the entire 6 minutes and not listen to what the interviewer has to say. Sometimes as you're talking and coming to conclusions along the way, the interviewer may reveal some other information that you will need to solve the next part. Think about it. If you have a role-play scenario where you're meeting with a fellow student who's having trouble during school, what would your reaction be in real life? You wouldn't just lecture them on and on about what they can do to make themselves better, how they can cope with it, and what your suggestions are. A lot of times you're going to ask them questions to see how they're doing, what things they've already done, what they've considered already, and what they're struggling with. So in roleplay scenarios, make sure you don't just talk, but that you also listen, because that's a big part of roleplay scenarios. You need to be able to communicate, which means that you need to be able to listen. How I approached the MMI was I read the prompt, I thought of all possible angles to approach the situation, then I addressed those to the interviewer, and then I spoke what I decided what my decision ultimately would be. Ultimately, I think the best way to approach an MMI is to touch all of those points. So that's the end of today, and I'll see you again next time.